thanks for coming tonight. It's a real honor to be part of this event. My name is Bill Mullen. I'll be kind of emceeing this tonight. This really critical discussion in a week of horrors in the United States, where we're going to talk about how we can start taking some power back against these forces that have been taking the lives of our people, pushing our friends and neighbors out of the country, going beyond our borders to make life miserable for our friends and comrades in the parts of the world that we love and cherish. So, two thanks before we start tonight. First, please give it up for Pilsen Community Books. The greatest bookstore in the world. Let's just have it done. Yes. And let's also give a shout out to the people of Pilsen in this community. They have been showing us how to fight and how to lead. That's part of the conversation tonight. It's part of the action tonight, is to learn from others how we can actually win in this moment of crisis. But I actually want to talk a little bit about their activist organizing work. All of them are thinkers, and all of them are doers. All of them interpret the world and try to change it, which is why we're here tonight. So our first speaker will be, and we're going to go alphabetically, more or less, is Tom Alter. If you could just put your hand up. Tom is sitting at the end. Tom has become known to us as a fighter for the right to think and speak and work, especially as a socialist in the United States. He's going to talk a little bit about that battle tonight. Our second speaker will be Naomi Paik, who's sitting to Tom's right. Is that correct? Yeah. Naomi, I think, is also well known to folks in this city as somebody who's done an incredible job of building and thinking through the questions of sanctuary and protection well before the historical moment that we are in. And she's also a faculty member at the University of Illinois at Chicago. So we'll come back and talk more about her amazing work tonight. And then our third speaker will kind of be a pairing. Ellen Schrecker, who is sitting here. Ellen. Probably known to a lot of you for her really amazing work on the history of McCarthyism in the United States. And tonight wants to talk a little bit about the thread between that moment and this moment, what's similar, what's different, and perhaps why we should also be hopeful in this time. Directly in front of me is my friend Valerie Johnson, and I'm very happy to say that Valerie was added to our program as a kind of special guest because she and Ellen have actually collaborated on a really critical book that's relatively new and is also for sale tonight, on the history of how the far right has gone after academic freedom. It didn't start last week. It didn't start in October 2023. They are actually mapping the critical history of what we've been up against for a long time in this country. So I think Valerie and Ellen might tag team a little bit on a discussion of that book. And then finally, Erik Wallenberg, who wears many hats tonight. One of the mentors I like to think of Pilsen Community Books, an amazing historian, and somebody who is also with Mandy, made this store a really important safe space for people in the city of Chicago. So we're really grateful to have all of them here. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Tom. We'll talk for 10 minutes or so, and then we will come back for discussion.
Thank you all for being here tonight, and of course thanks to Pilsen Community Bookstore for hosting this important meeting. It's always great to be back in Chicago. I lived for a few years here down the road in Little Village, and it's especially great to see so many friends, activists, and comrades with whom I have organized and been in the streets with over the years. And it's an honor to be with all of you who have been fighting the good fight, whether you're new to the struggle or have been at it for years. We are now at a new stage of resistance. While the chains and blows of the U.S. ruling class have weighed heavy on many for generations, the masks are off. At least my mask is all right now. Yeah, that's a bad point. The U.S. ruling class under the Trump administration, following through on policies begun by previous Democratic and Republican administrations, no longer is pretending to go by the old norms or even illusions of democracy. While genocide is being live-streamed in Palestine, fishing boats bombed and a president kidnapped in Venezuela, and fascist government thugs in the guise of ICE agents murder people in the streets, they tell us what we see is not real and that the victims are terrorists. Capitalism's march towards fascism and war is more apparent than ever. I am here to speak what has happened to me, but it goes beyond the case of a simple professor, otherwise I would not be speaking before you, as it has ramifications for all of us who care about justice and democratic rights. Now I was going to go through a little bit what happened to me. Now on September 10th, I was fired without due process from my tenured associate professor history position at Texas State University by University President Kelly Dampus through a social media post. President Dampus fired me over comments I had made 3 days earlier in a presentation I gave on an online revolutionary socialism conference, claiming that I was inciting violence and that I am a danger to the health and safety of the Texas State community. I gave this presentation on my own time, in my personal capacity, online from my home office on a Saturday morning. In none of the conference promotional material was I identified as a Texas State faculty member or employee. And in introducing myself at the beginning of my presentation, I did so as a member of the Texas State Employees Union, which represents employees of the state of Texas, and as a member of Socialist Horizon. My presentation was a brief overview of working class-based organizing historically and today. In my talk, while praising the civil disobedience of anarchists, I critiqued their lack of organization in achieving their long-stated goal of smashing the state, asking the question, quoting myself, "Without organization, how can anyone expect to overthrow the most bloodthirsty, profit-driven, mad organization in the history of the world, that of the U.S. government?" End quote. I said that. And not that this firing's been good, but it was kind of cool seeing that on like the Austin local news, like over and over again. And I scored some points with my 15-year-old daughter. She was like, "What?" But I knew also when people were watching that, they were putting that up there trying to vilify me. But I also knew there were also people out there watching that, clapping and cheering along. Now, to attend this online socialism conference, one had to pre-register, and the conference had a no recording or live streaming policy. Unbeknownst to conference organizers and attendees, a self-described fascist, that's how they describe themselves, with horribly anti-Semitic and anti-queer views, this person believes that Jewish people chose to die in the Holocaust, just to show the level of depravity of this person. This person recorded my talk for her YouTube channel. Besides recording my conference presentation, she also recorded the break period in between conference sessions. During the break period after my presentation, a conference participant asked me what it was like working at Texas State, and I just politely answered, believing that the conference was not being recorded and definitely not the break period. What this self-described fascist did was edit this break period conversation and made it look like it was part of my conference presentation, put it on social media, and began a campaign the next day calling for my firing, claiming that in my capacity as a Texas State professor, I was calling for overthrowing the U.S. government. Now, on the surface, this all seems ludicrous. Using my constitutionally protected free speech, I asked a rhetorical question about overthrowing the government and criticized it in the same vein as many have before. Most famously, Martin Luther King in his 1967 Beyond Vietnam speech. Yet this fascist found an eager and willing audience in the form of Texas State President Dampus and his administration. Dampus acting on what we believe were direct orders from Texas Governor Greg Abbott, though Dampus is a willing participant, I'm not letting him off the hook, violated the constitutional rights of free speech and due process. A district judge ordered that I be reinstated and for Texas State to carry out a due process hearing. This hearing was between me, Dampus, and our respective lawyers. This was not due process at all. It was a hearing where one's judge is also the prosecutor, being one and the same. Now, during the hearing, Dampus was looking to cover and even justify his illegal firing of me. After I explained to him that the fascist video was edited to make it seem I was discussing my employment at Texas State, he asked me, but what does it look like? That's what he asked. But what does it look like? As if the truth does not matter, just how things appear on the internet. Despite being useful tools, we must see the internet and digital spaces in their current form for what they are. Unregulated, undemocratic spaces controlled in large part by right-wing oligarchs. We see this in right-wing influencers who create false content to scapegoat immigrants and trans people and attack their enemies. This content is then liked and shared as a supposed truth by the likes of Vance, Musk, and Trump. This is in addition to AI being pushed on all of us, including by university administration, as it undermines human labor and creativity while destroying the environment. Now, in my second firing, Dampus added a new constitutional violation of charging me with using my position as a professor to recruit, in his view, easily influenced students into a revolutionary socialist party. This charge has no basis in fact or evidence of me using the classroom to recruit students. It also insults students who have come to revolutionary socialist conclusions on their own. Everyone has a democratic right to be a part of a political party. Now, my firing is not an isolated incident, not across the country, and especially not at Texas State. Since my firing, Texas State has forced out and fired additional students, faculty, and staff for opposing racism and sexism while defending the racism and sexism of Turning Point USA. Though many tenured professors have been fired in the past, and two recently over Palestine, I could be the first professor fired with no due process, not even a predetermined kangaroo court of a process. Now, as we know, higher education has been under attack for years. However, the attacks have increased and become more severe in the past 2 years. This began with the bipartisan government repression of people protesting the genocide in Palestine, especially on college campuses, with liberal institutions such as universities either ignoring or participating in the repression of free speech and the right to assemble over Palestine. This opened the door for new layers of attacks on the rights of free speech and assembly. The cause of Palestinian liberation was and remains the axis around which much of our struggles revolve around today. Now, amid this ongoing genocide, the U.S. is experiencing a deepening economic crisis while its empire internationally is weakening, but it is still extremely dangerous. Many Americans voted for Trump based on the economy, but it became painfully clear less than a year into Trump's second term that he cared little about the economic suffering of working and middle-class Americans, while enacting policies further enriching the ruling economic elites. These policies, along with the U.S. funding of Israel, the attack on Venezuela, and ICE agents terrorizing communities are not popular. We are seeing a growing resistance on all these fronts, with people looking for answers and a way to fight back. This is why Trump and his far-right supporters have moved towards authoritarianism and fascism, because we're not going along with their dictates. I was fired for being a unionist and a socialist who supposedly incited violence and criminal activity. What did I say in my talk? I called for defending transgender people, opposing ICE, and for people to join the picket lines of hotel workers in Houston who were then on strike against Hilton, which they won subsequently. Yeah. These are popular actions, and socialism itself is popular, seen most vividly in the election of Eugene Debs quoting Zohran Mamdani in New York City, though I must state I'm an actual follower of Debs, sticking to the principled strategy of independent working class political action that puts the working class in power, not just to reform capitalism, but to replace it with socialism. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has publicly declared he is, quote, targeting leftist ideologies and socialism in Texas, though Abbott's definition of leftist and socialist goes from socialists, such as me, to Clinton-supporting centrist Democrats. The lines have been drawn nonetheless. This story does not end on a down note, nor has it ended. I was fired on a Wednesday night, and the next morning, Texas State students were out protesting my firing and did so for 5 straight school days, with actions still ongoing. My union, the Texas State Employees Union, had an organizer at my home the next day. The Texas AAUP, American Association of University Professors, provided me with a lawyer, and a lawsuit has been filed. Academics with principals and their associations put out statements in defense of my case and academic freedom. And dear to me, networks of socialist organizations went into action across the world. A committee to defend Tom Alter, that still sounds weird saying that out loud, but thank you all, was formed as a nonpartisan committee to defend free speech. A few of its members and steadfast supporters are here tonight. I thank you deeply. There have been rallies in San Marcos and Austin, and community support, as well as elected officials at the local, county, and state level. Resistance is possible, and there is joy in resistance. People are looking to fight back, and our campaign has offered a way for people to fight back, connecting all of our struggles for democratic rights. Our enemies have hatred and resentment. We have love and solidarity. And through the power of our class organized through struggle, a better world is possible. Thank you.
This is amazing to see so many people in this space. I don't think I've ever seen this many people in this space. Yeah, and he works here, and he's never seen this many people in this space. So this is amazing. Thank you all for being here so much. Does anyone else want to file in? There's a bunch of people stuck outside. Do y'all want to come in? There's room if you want to sit behind us. Oh, okay. We're getting full back there. I'm sorry. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Yes. Woo! Okay. Thank you. Okay, so thanks again to PCB for hosting us, to Bill for bringing us together, to all my co-panelists, and for all of you for showing up on a Friday night. This is really amazing. So I've been asked to speak about organizing, the organizing that my homies and I have been doing at UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago. To defend our community. And our community is not confined to campus, but spreads across Chicagoland, including the suburbs. So I'm going to be talking about that. So just a little bit about our conditions of organizing. We have a lot of fluidity across campus boundaries with the city, and that reflects what UIC is institutionally. We're an urban public university in the dopest city. Yes. Most of our students commute to campus. We are an Hispanic serving and Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institution. Those are official federal designations. And we have the largest Palestinian student population in the country. Yeah. If you didn't know, like the Chicagoland area is one of the densest populations of Palestinians outside of Palestine. So we also have social justice built into the university mission, right? So even folks like Walter Michaels who aspire to work at a liberal or revanchist PWI have to deal with these fundamentals, which creates a lot of space for us. So UIC is genuinely a scholar activist campus. This is not that the institution it is, but the people are. There's already a robust community of folks who are awake and want to jump into different movements. And we have students, faculty, and workers who bring their organizing experience with them. So a lot of our folks are already doing community organizing in their neighborhoods and et cetera, right? And just to be clear, I hate all institutions, higher ed institutions, but as far as they go, UIC is not the worst. So that creates a lot of space. It's like the least worst university I've ever been attached to. So, okay. So let me just say about what we've been doing. So right after the election, a couple friends, homies and I got together, just 4 of us got together to organize a teach-in on Project 2025, just to get folks in the room. It wasn't even necessarily about Project 2025. So we packed the room, similar to this, and then we started organizing the folks who showed up and created this organization called Sanctuary for All. Right? So we focus on hollering at the university admin, so whatever. And more important to me, we focus on building our own capacity to meet the needs of the community. So obviously this work has been incredibly intense last semester because of Operation Midway Blitz. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to already have built out a collective before an occupation of that type or a 5-alarm or that type of 5-alarm fire gets to where you are, right? You need to have something already ready to go. Okay, so in this sense, we acted fast after the election. We were taking our cues from community organizers in migrant justice and abolitionist organizations here in Chicago and elsewhere who were re-energizing rapid response networks, community and school patrols, know your rights training and canvassing efforts, legal support networks, and on, right? So the importance of having a community already built out that folks can turn to in a crisis really came through when ICE abducted 2 young women on Wednesday, October 8th on our campus. So these women were not UIC students, and they were dragged out of their car while driving on Harrison Street to pick up their children from school. And Harrison Street cuts through our campus. So 2 days later, we already had a regularly scheduled, we meet every 2 weeks, we had a regularly scheduled meeting on that Friday. And that was the container that people were like, we don't know what's happening, but we definitely want to do something about this. They had some place to go to find other people who were interested and wanting to fight back. Right? So these folks were looking for, so again, it was a packed house, and people were looking for community and support for themselves. And also they felt driven to fight back and to protect each other. And we had already built that space for folks to come into. And so for folks who live in places that have not yet experienced ICE terrorism, it is coming for you. Okay? So the Big Beautiful Bill's $170 billion budget, which is like right now the budget is less than $5 billion. Okay, we're talking $170 billion, right? That hasn't even hit their till yet. They're just overspending. Okay, so it is really important for folks at other universities and other locations or other community organizations to get ready now and hope that you never have to deploy the tools that you get ready. So what are some things folks on campuses can do to get ready? This sounds very ephemeral and very unappealing to radical bros, but one of the most important steps that we've taken to get ready is relationship building. Okay, thank you. So there's a number of relationships that we have really relied on as our foundation. None of the other shit matters without relationships. So among students, workers, and faculty on campus. across campus organizations, including the many progressive student organizations and faculty orgs, and labor unions. Across migrant justice organizations in Chicago, with national organizations like the Sanctuary Campus Network, which I can also talk about, and the Coalition for Action in Higher Education, who kind of helped us generate a whole day of programming for the April 17th National Day of Action, which will also be happening this year. So if you want to get involved with that, you can talk to me, Heather, Bill, after this. And whatever, with the administration, because there are certain policy level things that we would like them to do that they aren't doing. So it's important to at least establish some kind of connection there. I'm not that person. Okay, so it's these relationships with each other that has made the work sustainable. It's something that we want to do because we're doing it together. And that time into building spaces where people want to be there, where we put thought into getting to know each other. We always order tamales and like Chinese pastries for all of our meetings. We make sure that it's a social space, that we like hang out. We invite like, hey, how's it going? I'm so glad you're here. What's your name? Like, please sit at the table. Like that, all that like basic stuff. And all of that has been super crucial in terms of building up these relationships. So it seems like, you know, loose feminine work, but it actually is the foundation for anything that you actually want to do. Okay, so one of the things that we've started is a labor and progressive coalition with representatives from the unions, as well as a lot of the student groups and us. So this helps us coordinate who's working on what issue as their primary focus and where other groups can support and amplify. So the students are really focused on DEI, cultural centers, things like that. Unions, obviously, union labor issues, and we're doing a lot of migrant justice, etc. So for example, we, SFA, or Sanctuary for All, are taking the lead on a Know Your Rights session for campus next week, while SDS is taking the lead on a town hall with administrators to respond to our community questions and demands, which will happen the following week. And then the unions are building towards their contract negotiations, which have already started for the grad students and will start soon for the faculty, right? And those unions are including demands for a sanctuary campus and for protections of diversity initiatives. So all of this works together as an ecosystem. But we're working all together all the time on Signal, oh my God, and Zoom, and in person. So that it's an ecosystem where no one is doing everything because everyone's doing something, okay? And so this kind of networking and coalition and relationship building expands our capacity, our sustainability, and our collective power. So Sanctuary for All, our part of this ecosystem, focuses a lot of our work on community defense, especially since UIC apparently approaches the rest of us as not worth doing anything for. So, for example, UIC pretends that not saying anything provides more protection than transparency, and its communications around ICE and the horrors of the moment are virtually non-existent. So, for example, UIC made no mention of the abduction of 2 women for 5 whole days. So I was on campus, I taught, I got the message in between classes. I go to my second class, people were like, was someone abducted? And I had to tell them yes, and then ask them to leave campus with a partner. Do you know what I'm saying? There was no directive from the admin. When it finally did acknowledge the abduction, it claimed that it didn't happen at UIC because it technically occurred on Harrison Street, which is city property, not campus property. So we try to step in and fill this yawning gap by providing communications, including like basic information like, yes, this happened, right? As well as context and analysis and practical information on what to do in your classroom, teaching, knowing your rights, and mutual aid resources. So a lot of instructors were confused about how to manage teaching when their students couldn't come to class because of ICE, or how to handle the possibility that ICE would come to campus. So we worked with the unions to host a responsive classrooms workshop, and we've distributed the notes and other teaching resources, including syllabus language, to anyone who wants it. We have a mutual aid team that collects resources available on and off campus, financial, food, housing, etc. Our comms team is amazing. They bring together lots of these and other resources on our link tree, including upcoming citywide Migra Watch and Know Your Rights trainings, events, legal resources, and more. And I've seen these, like our link tree and the Google Sheet with all of the trainings, circulate through the other rapid response groups, and people are looking for this kind of information. So it's not just for us, it's for whoever, right? We also started canvassing businesses surrounding campus. as well as offices throughout campus. So we borrowed and were inspired by, we literally borrowed materials from community groups like Palenque LSNA and United Neighbors, and we assembled 2 different kinds of packets, so like a business packet and then a campus packet, as well as scripts for canvassers to go out together as teams, which is also a relationship building thing because you're getting to know each other as you walk from office to office or business to business, as well as building a broader base of folks. Oh, I didn't know you existed. How do I get in touch with you? So again, you're building like your power by doing all of these small things. So after the abduction, a lot of campus workers and other folks on campus wanted to know what to do if ICE comes on or near campus again. And since the administration provides zero guidance, we've just prepared basic info and started taking it out to folks on what to do. So mutual aid, communications, and canvassing all work together with our rapid response team, which we started after Operation Midway Blitz. And just, you know, for other folks who are on like ramping up, it's worth doing it earlier, even if you don't think you're going to need it. So the reason that we were kind of slow going with it is that we had heard concerns we had reached out to other neighboring rapid response teams about collaborating, and they had a lot of concerns about being criminalized by campus police if they were to come to campus property to do a rapid response. So anyways, after Midway Blitz started, like we just needed to all get on board, right? So we work with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, which coordinates all the RR teams across Chicagoland. It's mostly run through Signal, as well as weekly meetings on Zoom with the team leaders. We do require that folks be rapid response trained, and we do host trainings like IRL trainings, as well as we spread the information about the online ones. So we require that people be trained, that they create a safety plan, and they do at least one activity with us. Many folks are already trained and active in their neighborhood rapid response teams. So again, there's a lot of fluidity there. And one of our folks he just stepped up. He really likes bicycling. He just stepped up and started organizing a bike and foot patrol on his own, and like trains people, and then like has his own Signal group as like an offshoot of our rapid response team, right? And so the goal is to have patrols. I think his goal is from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. We'll see how that goes. But thank you, Fabrizio, for all of that work you're doing. So this is just like a snapshot of some of the things we've been doing. And I've focused on like practical things in the hopes that some of this might be useful to you wherever you are. If you're trying to get off the ground or want to talk more, I and other folks at SFA would be happy to meet up and think together. We've already done this with some folks at other schools. And then also the Sanctuary Campus Network will be hosting drop-in meetings on how to start a rapid response group or how to get ready for ICE, as well as some other topics, how to deal with academic freedom, employment issues, how to deal with when the call is coming from inside the house, like your own state is going after you, that kind of thing. So if you're interested in that, you can also, I'd be happy to talk to you. Again, I desperately hope that none of you will ultimately need it. But I'm pleading with folks to get ready because even with all the stuff that we already had ready to go, it has still been very overwhelming. Like very overwhelming. It's like, I can't really, that doesn't even capture it. It's like devastating. Yeah. So it's been fundamental for me individually on a personal level and for many others to have these relationships already fostered and strengthened because you are going to fucking need them. Yeah. So, you know, the only way we're going to get this is together. So you better get your shit together and you better get your people together. All right. Thank you.
No mask. You know who I am. And I've been around for quite a long time. I've done a lot of writing and research with regard to McCarthyism, academic freedom, and political repression in this country. And people keep asking me, well, you know, certainly ever since 2001, oh, do I have to turn it on?
Put it right here.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. And they ask, you know, how's what's happening today different from McCarthyism? Is it a replay? And I'm a trained historian, and I believe in nuance and complexity and putting everything into context. And now I have to say, no more context, no more nuance. It's worse. It's much worse than it's ever been. Yes, we can use the F word. And there are two reasons why it's worse than during the 1950s. One is that McCarthyism only attacked, and I'm talking mainly about higher education here, but it's applicable everywhere, and we know it. McCarthyism in the universities only attacked individual professors. There were about 100 people fired and blacklisted for their politics, and they were never questioned about their research and teaching. Now, the forces of ignorance are looking at everything, right? From biomedical research to admissions to DEI programs, athletics, library books, curricula syllabi, and you may have seen today's most recent horror atrocity, again in Texas, at Texas A&M, where the administration told a professor who was teaching an introductory philosophy course, that he couldn't teach Plato. No more Plato. Okay? The second reason why things today are worse than they were in the 50s is that the academic community is weaker. It was during a moment of serious political repression, but it was also a moment of enormous growth within higher education. They were expecting the baby boom, hiring. I mean, anybody who had a few graduate classes could find a job and eventually get tenure, if you can believe that. And the universities had considerable prestige. But that so-called golden age of higher education began to erode in the 1970s. And it began to erode for two reasons. First, there was a conservative backlash against the campus unrest of the 1960s. And at the same time, there was an economic crisis that undermined support for the liberal welfare state of that early Cold War period. And together, they contributed in part, not entirely, to moving American political culture to the right, as the nation's political elites adopted a neoliberal economic regime that prioritized the corporate sector and downgraded the public one. And there was also, at the same time, a campaign by libertarian ideologues and reactionary billionaires like the Koch brothers and others to undermine support for higher education, which they saw as a threat to their beloved, quote-unquote, free enterprise. The result was, of course, a cut in public funding, especially at the state level, which was where most public higher education had been getting its funding from. But there was also the dissemination of a scenario that viewed universities as dominated by radical professors and students and headed by the weak-willed administrators who capitulated to those evil radicals' demands. Now, at the same time, these billionaires were creating counter-institutions. Their think tanks, their academic programs that are sort of springing up on many campuses. You know, in other words, they're the carrots and the more draconian student regulations and things like that, or the sticks. And they are being designed to replace mainstream universities as a source of knowledge for politicians, the media, and the public at large. So, for the next 4 to 5 decades, and we're talking about the 80s, 90s, and onward, academic administrators adopted the corporate values that they thought would help get them through this regime of austerity. And they talked about, quote-unquote, reforms. And they, of course, sidelined the faculty. They raised tuitions. They sucked up to donors and increasingly relied on federal grants to fund their scientific research. In other words, the government was paying for science for the past few decades. And they cut costs. Most seriously by hollowing out the faculty. Today, somewhere between 70 and 75% of all instruction is in the hands of contingent faculty members. People who hold part-time or temporary contracts. These people are without tenure or the expectation of it. They have little job security, and as a result, they have no academic freedom. They can be fired, and are. But there was little attention within the mainstream during these past few decades to all of these structural changes. It was going on, but nobody was pushing back. And then it got worse. In 2020, at the end of his first term, Trump sort of jump-started the present massive attack on higher education. It had been going on before, here and there, and you knew certain things you weren't supposed to talk about, like Palestine. But he targeted, I think it was training in DEI within the federal government in the fall of 2020. During his presidential campaign, he lost the election, but his campaign continued at the state level, especially in the state legislatures like Texas and Florida, where Ron DeSantis thought he was going to be the golden boy of academic repression. Red state legislatures enacted so-called educational gag rules. They tended to focus on racism. They tended to focus on teaching about racism or about sexuality, and the less than glorious past of American history. And initially, universities complied with most of these measures. They would cancel classes. They forced departments to revise their curricula. They didn't protect their students or faculty from these doxing attacks that occurred if people were too outspoken, and certainly didn't fight back. They hired consultants, which they do to this day, from within corporate law firms, anti-union law firms, and the like. And especially after the Hamas attack of October 7th, 2023, provoked student demonstrations against Israel's genocidal behavior in Gaza. They cracked down on student political activities. But unlike during McCarthyism, where there was no pushback, today we're beginning to see some resistance. And that's the biggest difference I see between now and then. And there is resistance. You're all here. We couldn't have had it. I mean, I've lived through the 50s. We couldn't have had a meeting like this then. Nobody would have come. Nobody would have sponsored it. But today there is resistance, there's litigation, there's lots of it. I haven't done the research, but I know there are probably several hundred lawsuits underway. The AAUP is, which I am a member of, its main academic freedom committee, I know is carrying on at least 8 lawsuits, and the ACLU, which refused during McCarthyism to protect anybody accused of communism, is sort of overwhelmed with dozens of them. The AFT, the NEA, Harvard is suing, the University of California is suing, the Center for Constitutional Rights, FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, which is somewhat questionable in some areas, is also suing the Trump administration. The American Association of Universities, which is a collective body of all the, I think it's 72 or 3 presidents of the nation's largest and most important research universities, is suing. The ACLS is suing. The MLA is suing. The AHA is suing. I mean, you know, the legal system is being employed and is going to continue to be employed no matter what happens. And it's very, very important, even if maybe when it reaches the Roberts Court, we don't prevail. But by then, knock wood, other things will have changed the American political scene as well. But specifically important is that faculties are more active. They're voting no confidence with regularity, which sort of validates the old Union statement saying that the most important organizer within the labor movement is the boss. And they usually become mobilized in the face of something like what happened to Tom Alter. And we're seeing that over and over again. They're organizing new groups, they're strengthening old ones, and searching for coalitions. The word everybody's using the word coalition within higher education. And some of these organizations are even articulating more ambitious goals, agendas, than just the preservation of academic freedom. I mean, they're beginning to talk about free higher education for all, forgiveness of student loans, and there are groups, organized groups, that are pursuing those agendas. So this is all very important. And I can see it. I've been active in the AAUP for several decades, I guess, and I've seen an enormous change. In sort of my first book, which I wrote about McCarthyism in higher education, I discovered that the AAUP did nothing during McCarthyism. I mean, literally nothing. They didn't take any public action or intervene in any cases between 1947 and 1956, the height of McCarthyism. The AAUP was completely out of the picture. Even as about 100 mostly tenured professors were fired and blacklisted, and we don't have a full accounting of it. We never will. Now I can sort of run through the next few decades. There was so much turmoil in the 1960s that, professors were being fired, but they were also being rehired because there was so much expansion. So that without a blacklist, firing people isn't really as effective as it could be. And this was very important. This helped make the 60s movement actually sort of get energized, because people weren't taking the kind of risks people are taking now. But people are taking more risks now. And the AAUP has changed almost completely. It's now with a new set of leaders for the past 2 years that has an activist agenda rather than a reactive agenda. You know, they're looking, they see a problem, and then they write a report and try to help people figure out the best ways to do this. They're actively recruiting on campuses. They're growing for the first time in decades. And it's, you know, part of a movement. We're here. We're in the beginning of a movement. We're not very far along, but there are new organizations. There's HELU, I don't know if you've heard of it, Higher Education Labor United, which is seeking to treat all academic employees as workers within a single union, unit that needs to gain power in campuses and to eliminate the barriers between different groups and units. There are also activist groups within the disciplines, like my own group, Historians for Peace and Democracy, and the Radical Caucus within the MLA, which I'm sure some people here probably know about, that are bringing resolutions to national meetings. And I used to think that was sort of silly, but it isn't silly because it's educational. It's bringing attention to issues. I mean, we in HPAD got people to talk about Palestine. You know, it was being shoved under the rug, and we got it discussed. So, you know, now people don't really like Israel so much anymore. And one group that's really quite adorable are the alumni. They're beginning to become active. At my own alma mater, I'm embarrassed to say Harvard, I have had a 65th reunion. I'm very old, by the way. I had a 65th reunion about a year ago, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have some kind of activity? This is pre-Trump in the White House, you know, at maybe just a sign saying Harvard, support academic freedom or something. But I didn't have a chance. They were already organized. And they called themselves Crimson Courage. And what I particularly liked was among these people, they were all sort of the class of like 68, 69, 70. They'd been there before, done that, and they were doing it. But they began to expand, and they expanded to alumni groups elsewhere. And at the most recent, I saw their website recently, they had said that they were in many schools with organized units, and they listed some 13 very big name schools on their website with wonderful names. The one I loved was Longhorns for Liberty. That's the University of Texas, Austin. And the Wahoos for UVA at the University of Virginia. So, you know, there is stuff going on. And they have organized, this group is called Stand for Campus Freedom. And they're getting money. And, you know, alumni are saying, I'm never going to give any more money to my alma mater until you begin to stop repressing your students and keep ICE off the campus, et cetera, et cetera. We know the demands. But there's also things people can do as individuals. I mean, we've been talking a lot about solidarity, but you don't need solidarity to write a book. And a bunch of us have been writing books. This is one of the most recent ones that just came out. I'm not sure. What's the pub date?
January.
Now it's out. You can buy this right here. It's called In the Spirit of H. Chandler Davis. If in my book about academic freedom and McCarthyism that's now 40 years old, H. Chandler Davis was the hero, and he was somebody who went to prison for trying to take the First Amendment and defending free speech before the House Un-American Activities Committee. He went to prison, then went to the blacklist and ended up in Canada. But it's a wonderful book that contains essays about academic freedom in the spirit of H. Chandler Davis. And we have one of the editors here. You want to get up and say hello? This is Melanie Tinelian from the University of Michigan. This is where he was fired. And this is sort of Michigan standing up against today's horrible things. And what's important here is to educate people, let people know what's happening and what they can do, as we've just heard. And let me finally end by, because I've been keeping you much too long, by noting that history is giving us some hope. And one history that we seem to have forgotten is the fact that the Vietnam War, which began in 1965 and lasted for 10 years, was really stopped in large part by a movement that began on American campuses, actually University of Michigan, with the teach-in movement, because nobody knew anything in 1965 in the United States about Vietnam. So there was a need for education, and what do faculty members do? They educate, and they educated themselves, learned a little bit more than your average citizen about Vietnam, and began to hold teach-ins to educate their students, their colleagues, local citizens, about what was going on in Vietnam and why it had to be opposed. And it took years. This anti-war movement took 10 years. It's very important to realize that. But it succeeded. It succeeded. It turns out, and there's some recent scholarship about this. You know, I wouldn't be a legitimate academic if I didn't cite some bibliography here. There's a book that's coming out this year. I don't know if it's out yet or not, because I was sent an early manuscript to blurb it by a scholar named J. Samuel Walker, called Nixon and Campus Unrest. And what he shows is that Nixon was very worried about what was going on American universities, really worried. And he knew that the students were not going to give up and were not going to stop protesting unless the war died off, unless the war ended. And so he began to de-escalate the war, which turned out to be an irreversible process. It took a long time, and that's what we have to realize. But we're seeing some successes already. And here I want to, again, cite my, if you can believe it, pathetic alma mater. It was really amazing to see that the president of Harvard simply said no to Trump last April. He just said no, and it was contagious. You know, then Trump presents his compact for excellence in higher education, which was his offer to colleges and universities to give in to all of his demands, and then he won't take away as much of their money. And that he gave this offer to 9, selective institutions, and 8 of them turned it down. So what we're seeing is not just people like us speaking out, going to the streets, demonstrating every month or so. I mean, in New York, you can do it, many times a week. But it's coming from the grassroots to the sort of halls of the elites. And I think we're going to win, and you guys are doing an amazing job to get us there, but it's going to be very hard. And thank you. And one of these books that is so important I'm very proud of because I helped with it, as did my colleague Valerie who wrote an amazing chapter in it. It's called The Right to Learn.
The Epistemology of Ignorance.
Fabulous.
Good evening. Again, I'm Valerie Johnson. I am a professor of political science at DePaul University, as well as associate provost for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm pretty sure many of you are like, "What? Diversity? What?" But we're still hanging on. I've been asked to talk. Oh, okay. I've been asked to talk to you a bit about the impetus for this book that, again, Ellen, myself, and our colleague Jennifer Ruth put together. But I wanted to riff for a second, though, on something that Naomi was talking about, which is so very important, and that is building organizational capacity. Rarely, if ever, is anything done alone or by individuals, right? When you look at the formula for political change, there are three basic factors, organizational capacity being one of them, but also a moment of opportunity. And if there ever was a moment of opportunity, this is it. I mean, this is the moment. And we could ill afford anyone sitting on the sidelines just pontificating and complaining like I do every single day. Because it is hard. This moment is very hard. I just, after 31 years of teaching political science, teaching on race and inequality, I literally could not have imagined this moment. I really didn't realize, well, I should have, because political scientists will tell you only 4 to 5% of people protest anything. Normally, people just kind of trudge along. They think of their own, their own failures as just something that is individual. They rarely realize that it is part and parcel of an oppressive system. And so, so this is definitely a moment of opportunity for us. The third is perhaps just as critically important, and that is consciousness, a change in consciousness, right? Again, most people just kind of trudge along, and they don't realize that what is occurring with them is part and parcel of a system, if you will. And so as H. Rap Brown said many years ago, free your mind and your ass will follow, okay? And so it is not only incumbent upon us to free our minds by learning more information, and that is why, books like the Chandler Davis book, this book, are really, we considered it an act of resistance. When Ellen, myself, and Jennifer Ruth came together, we came together in 2012 summer of 2021, working with Kimberly Crenshaw's organization, the African American Policy Forum, because it was like creeping on us, all of these different education gag orders that were occurring mainly in the South. And so we wanted to sound the alarm. And so we started what was referred to as, at the time, the Faculty Senate campaign, because we felt that faculty had to be on the vanguard of this new movement, right? Clearly, the right was winning the social media war, the culture war, if you will, just sort of antagonizing and vilifying all acts of identity, from race to sexual identity to even disability, certainly national origin. And so we saw this trend, and so we thought that if we could get faculty senates or faculty councils to just say no, to say to their respective administrations that essentially we're not going back, right? And so it was about 80 universities, colleges and universities that we had to pass reaffirmations of academic freedom and resolutions. I was really happy that DePaul University, my university, was the first one. And so we said to administrators across the country, if you say, in fact, that you defend academic freedom, then here's your opportunity to do so. From there, because, it was very difficult, the bandwidth, we just didn't have the bandwidth to continue that sort of university by university fight. And so we decided to put together this book. And it's, each chapter is written by people from AAUP. Well, Irene Mulvey, the president of AAUP at the time, she wrote the foreword. We have people from PEN America, education unions, people from contingent faculty organizations, even 3 deans talking about the impact on schools of education. And as Ellen mentioned, my chapter deals with, again, the epistemology of ignorance, the way of learning ignorance. And that is why it's so important for us to each one teach one, because when you look at how information is passed down in the United States, it really is learned ignorance. And so we recognize that if we did not confront that ignorance and, say loud and clear that this sort of erasure of history was all about keeping people ignorant, and therefore, laying the groundwork for a sacrifice of individual freedoms and rights. And you could see that happening every single day. Just like with the murder a couple of days ago of Renee Good. How could you forget a name like Good? But Renee Good. I mean, if you look at the presentation, this morning I started out before watching Democracy Now! With the Fox News, and you look at the presentation, they would have you to believe that this woman who was dedicated to protecting her neighbors, that she somehow deserved to be killed, right? And there are people, believe me, as I was looking at Fox News this morning, I'm like, this is just absolutely fascinating that so many people would, just, you're talking about an act of erosion of just basic democratic rights, would believe that any act of protest was somehow illegal, right? And so it's happening every day. It's happening, and I think to a certain degree, maybe we are we're just paralyzed, really, because we just could not imagine this happening in the United States, but it is happening. So it's time to take the blinders off and join an organization. I don't care which organization it is. I am pretty certain that we packed in this room are members of numerous organizations. Join the organizations, support the organizations, and more than anything, talk to people wherever you are, brighten the corner that you're in, and have conversations with people and try to reason with them. But most of all, get out in the streets. You know, sometimes I hear people say, oh, you know, what does a protest do? Well, a protest, if nothing more, it sounds the alarm. It says to those people who are trudging along thinking that this is just the nature of things, it says to them that you are not alone and that others are feeling this too. So if nothing more than just to sound the alarm, please, 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 when you hear of rallies and organizations, get out in the streets. And even though you may look at your relatives and friends who are MAGA and say, okay, they're hopeless, begin to talk to them, because believe me, every single day that goes by is lighting the fire, because they are becoming intimately aware that that MAGA is not for them. This is a sort of capitalist, racist, homophobic, xenophobic, etc. Attempt to just strip us all of our rights. And if we're not talking with one another, all we're doing is fanning the flames of division. And so remember those three factors. Organizational capacity. You have to be plugged into an organization. This is the moment of readiness. I mean, I've never in my 64 years seen it like this. And believe me, over the years, I've complained about and protested a lot of things, but I've never seen it like this. And then third, again, a change in consciousness. And that is something that we all can be a part of, whether it's in the classroom or out of the classroom. One thing I just want to say about community education. Community education is so very important. One of the things that I really do not like about our title, the subtitle is Resisting the Right-Wing Attack on Academic Freedom. Most people are like, academic who? What's academic freedom? People have heard of free speech, but they do not understand that academic freedom is simply the right for academics to teach to their disciplinary expertise. Without that, democracy goes out the window, because if people are ignorant, then they are compliant. Right? And so please, please, please do not be a bystander coming to talks like this and, you know, just going out the door touched but not moved to action. Right? Please do not do that. Please be a part of those three factors that really impact change. And last word, as I was telling Ellen and those at dinner, this time around, the movement has to be a radical, not just a neoliberal movement, right? We talk about MAGA, we talk about the right, but it's the left too, right? It's really time for us to stop with the sort of moderate tone and really this time fight for wholesale change and understand that that we're, you know, every single person, there are a multitude of identities represented in this room, and each of them are important and deserving of basic human rights. With that, thank you.
How many people in the room have heard something about the fascist takeover of New College of Florida? Just a show of hands, just to get a sense. Okay. This audience knows what's going on. Okay, well, I just want to take a few minutes to tell a story of a college that went from being the college where Bell Hooks was a scholar in residence teaching in the gender studies program to a college that now is going to be the first campus in the country to have a Charlie Kirk statue. It's a campus where there were no grades. You had narrative evaluations for students, senior theses, areas of concentration where students really dug in on a project. A way that when I taught there felt like, how could you teach in any other way? Students not wanting to talk to you about their grades and haggle over a grade, but wanting to talk to you about what their project is, what their ideas are, how well they're explaining it, how well they're understanding it, what else they need to understand, not thinking about grades at all, having no thought of that. And it was a transformative experience. It makes me feel like I would never want to teach in a place that has grades again. I wouldn't even know how to do it anymore. To a place that now, as Ellen said, there were 9 campuses that refused the Trump compact. There was one campus that voluntarily went forward with putting in place the Trump compact to get federal preferential treatment on federal funds. That's the New College of Florida, right? The only school in the country to do that. So this school has transformed. I was a visiting professor of history there from the fall of 2022 to the spring of 2023. The fall of 2022, I was enamored with the place. Amazing students, faculty that were doing really great work, had built an institution, I think, to be replicated across the country. And on January 6th, that date, I don't think was a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a coincidence. On January 6th, 2023, Ron DeSantis announced that he was instituting a majority control on the board of his minions, taken from around the country, a who's who of the Ghoul Show, of the right-wing dream of remaking education, headed by Chris Rufo, if you follow his scary work, but many other people in that cohort. I won't go through all of them, though we could, who then proceeded to fire the president of the university, to fire the only DEI officer on campus, who did a lot of work beyond that, helping students and faculty with grant writing and work that brought millions of dollars into the school. Fired her without any process. Fired the chief librarian, who was the main researcher with students, helping them access information at the library. And then over the course of that spring, denied tenure to a group of 6 assistant faculty going up for tenure. So it's essentially shots fired to remake the college very quickly. And I was a visiting faculty with along with another visiting faculty member who had been there for a year, who also happened to go to the same graduate program I was in. So we met there in Florida. And we decided that one of the things that students needed in this moment was access to history. That actually history is a powerful tool. And so we proceeded to research and write an article about how Black Studies was won nationally, about how the gender studies program was won at that campus. It wasn't given by anyone. It was demanded by the students. About how the Vietnam War was ended through a mass movement, and what happened on that campus, the student strikes, the faculty strikes, trying to give a sense of what it was going to take to fight back. And we published it. We wanted to publish it in a place where we thought students might actually read it. And so we published it online in what we thought was going to be a small outlet that nobody would really, none of these academics would pay attention to. It was Teen Vogue. And unfortunately, Chris Rufo, because his name was there, I'm sure, got wind of it and tweeted that good thing that we were visiting faculty because we weren't going to be there much longer. So again, the shots were fired, and the whole spring there was an amazing movement led by students. I think important to say that students have really been the heartbeat of movements, as Tom said for his own case, really out there for 5 days after Tom was fired, relentless, really didn't allow any space for there to be anything else talked about, right? It's like, this has to move forward. It's the same thing at New College. You had students leading the charge, along with alumni, actually, along with the community. It was a small enough community that New College really mattered to the community. Does still matter in a lot of ways, and the faculty, were slow to respond. If we're going to be honest about it, not all of them for sure, but the majority of them, and I think that is one of our something that we have to shift, and we have to all help to shift. But I think taking a lead from students in particular who understood that they had a stake here if they wanted to learn what they wanted to learn, right? They had chosen to come to this school. They had chosen their areas of concentration, and they were going to fight to make that space their own. And so I think there's a lesson there for us to follow, both what students are doing, but also to stand up and fight, and not you can't hope to sort of back away from a fight. You can't hope that it'll go away. I'm less confident than Ellen. I think that I think there is a fight back for sure, but I think we're about to get in a much worse situation in the coming years. I think there's going to be a lot more Tom Alters out there. I hope there's a lot more, a lot more of the way that people have organized his defense campaign. But I think there's going to be a lot more firings. There's going to be a lot more intimidated people. And I think we have a responsibility, whether you're on a campus or you're in a community next to UIC or next to the University of Chicago, or if you're at Northwestern where Stephen Thrasher was summarily fired. It's not just a question of Texas and Florida. This is happening across the country. It's happening at CUNY in New York City. It's happening everywhere. It's not a Southern problem. It's New School. It's Northwestern. It's all over. So I think you can also adopt a campus, right? You can make good with students and faculty and staff at campuses, because it's going to be a long fight, and we're going to need campaigns like the one to defend Tom. If you haven't joined the Defend Tom Alter campaign, you should join. You should talk to Bill. Nancy Rosenstock, put your hand up. There's going to be a lot of people around. You should join the campaign. We're going to be putting him on tour. He'll be back in Chicago in March. We have a lot of work to do, and we can learn from this campaign for the next one, for the faculty that might get fired at local campuses. Because if we don't fight back, right, then this is going to continue and it's going to get worse. So I don't want to take more time. I want to hear from people in the audience. So I'll pass it back over to Bill.
Right on, Eric. All right. So, obviously incredible presentations that have just touched the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we could talk about tonight. And we're really grateful, again, that folks are here, that you're standing, that you're listening, that you're engaged. It's so critical. So we want to, for sure, have some discussion tonight.
It's not really a question, but I kind of want to speak because I have a lot of things to say. Can I speak through the microphone?
Yeah, here.
So, hi, my name is Aiden. I am 8 years old. And for the editor making the video, please blur out my face because the things I can do the things. So, I'm going to talk about Palestine first, and then I'm going to talk about the stuff going around with the campuses and all of that. So, I am pretty much related to Palestine, and a few years ago, I actually went to a big protest in Northwestern. I think it was at the football field in there. And then it was really big. I did a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of hope that Palestine will win. And with everyone here and how our team is growing and growing, and more people are joining Palestine. If we work together and if we are determined to do it, we can eventually make Palestine free. Okay.
All right. So after the meeting, to join Team Palestine, Aiden's your man. All right. That was amazing, man. Thank you. There's another question over here. If we could pass the.
I'm nowhere near that cute, but so we were just talking about Chris Rufo specifically, and one of the things that Chris Rufo just did was release a guide to how, well, like a YouTube video guide on how to entrap and take down and break the infrastructure of anti-fascists. So that's a YouTube video. I don't know how to access it or give it to you all without giving him views, but it definitely has everything everybody was talking about up here and more. So we're talking about like going after the organizations that even fund the schools or the payment processors that will take donations from all of us and things like this. So I think that's kind of like a canary in a coal mine situation where sometimes people like that will tell on themselves and give their own playbook away. So I'm wondering if any of you have seen other examples of that, especially recently, where someone just kind of gives all the information out there and then we can take it. Yeah, definitely. But even like individual content creators or things like feeds to watch or that sort of thing.
Well, I'll just say that something you all know is that they're saying the quiet part out loud now. You know, I was just so fascinated when Venezuela was attacked and its leader kidnapped, that Trump actually said it's about the oil. I mean, so there's no pretense anymore. The facade has been lifted, and so they are literally saying the quiet part out loud. I supported Kamala, not because I necessarily thought that the Democratic Party had something revolutionary to say or do, but because it would be just a lot better than Trump. I had flipped through Project 2025, so they broadcast to us what the hell they were going to do to us, and now they're doing it. And so I don't think that there's any more pretense about what is going on and the intent, and certainly authoritarianism is the intent. Just sort of late stage capitalism, that is the intent. It's not about as they would tell us, CRT or this or that, DEI. It has nothing to do with it at all. And so all you got to do is read Project 2025. It's out there.
Hi, I see some of you here. Comrade here is an AHA member, the American Historical Association. Is anybody else here a member of the American Historical Association? Fantastic. So some of us know this, and I just want to make an announcement that the AHA has systematically for 2 years in a row undemocratically blocked membership initiatives to actually put resolutions to vote. This is resolutions regarding Palestine and resolution about academic freedom. So we were not demanding that you pass these resolutions. We were simply demanding that these resolutions be put to vote. And each time, the first time with the one sole power the executive had, which was veto power, they actually overturned a Democratic meeting where over 90% of the people in the room voted to have that resolution put to vote, and they vetoed that. The second time around this year, they have done the same thing, which is we put forward 2 resolutions, and the business council and the powers that be decided that yes, they fulfilled all the legal requirements of the organization, but at the last minute, without informing why or how, they said that those resolutions could not be voted on. So what we are requesting every member of the AHA to do is flood the business meeting on Saturday at 5:15 to 6:30 at the Hilton Chicago room. It's the Continental Room ABC, to come to this business meeting and show your support, not just for Palestine, but the basic right to vote at a resolution in your own organization. So please come to this meeting on Saturday if you are a voting member of the AHA, and even if you are not, to make some noise. Free Palestine!
I think that I'm on the AAU HPAD, that's the organization, Historians for Peace and Democracy steering committee. And what we want to do is not give the powers that be that run the organization the pleasure of having us scream or, demonstrate, but rather just with our numbers. We are going to win, and we're going to win even though these people are subverting all pretense of democratic educational rights. And I think that it's more important to get those resolutions passed. So, because that's really speaking truth to power. And we're going to get power. And that's the way to do it. Thanks a lot. I mean, you're wonderful. It's so exciting to be here. I can't tell you how thrilling it is to see this much electricity in this room, and know that it goes on day after day after day here in Chicago. I'm in New York, and it goes on day after day in New York too, and it's going everywhere. I do believe that we are going to win.
All right. Another question.
Hi. So I'm a grad student right now. It's not the best time, honestly, and I'm doing library science. So I was wondering, with the panel, with all your experiences and stuff like that, what is like the role that you can see grad students doing on their campuses, and what's their role in like organizing? My campus doesn't have a union right now. It's a private university, unfortunately, but I was just kind of wondering what you guys think grad students can do in organizing on their campuses.
Oh, I see. I guess my question is, how do we defend ourselves against the right in our cities, like when they try to come to our meetings? Just so people should be aware, there was a group of 6 people here sitting in the back from Flip Chicago Red. And the only reason I recognize them is because they were protesting outside my union this past week. And this is like a right-wing MAGA group. And so they're confident, you know, they're killing people in the streets or invading other countries. They're confident coming to meetings like this. And like, God knows what they're doing, just recording it, I would imagine, for their boost their likes on their Facebook page, or whatever the fuck their project is. But like, clearly what happened to Tom was related to a MAGA person infiltrating a leftist meeting. So how do we as activists to the best that we can, protect ourselves from these kind of infiltrations and spying operations.
So this is a question mostly for Tom, but what advice would you have for another faculty member at a state Texas university?
Okay, I'll start. What to do in Texas? Well, join your union. Join your union. Now, that may sound odd in Texas, where public employees do not have the right to collectively bargain or go out on strike. And so I've been active in the Texas State Employees Union since I started as a lecturer at Texas State in 2017. It's near and dear to me. But for many people, it's just symbolic and a principled thing to do because we don't have the power to withhold our labor legally. So, but it's through the defense campaign that we've waged, people in how TSEU, thankfully, responded to it. People saw what a union can do, even without the legal right to collectively bargain and to strike. Union membership at Texas State in both the American Association of University Professors and the TSEU has more than doubled since that time. And they see this, okay, we can't go on strike legally, but and trying to build towards that. We got to break some bad laws in order to get some good laws in place. So people have seen the defense campaign, and it's been building to be a part of that. And it's right now it's defensive action. This kind of builds on some other questions. It's defensive is why a lot of people are joining. But the thing is also we need to realize our own power, and that's what we need to build towards. We're building capacity right now in organizing and educating, but we need to get to that point when we see that we are the majority. We hold the power. It's our labor, no matter where you work, that makes everything work and makes everything run. And we have the power. And so it's right now, it's building that. It's the slow, steady steps. It's increasing greatly the time, but we're forming the networks. Like just yesterday, I spent just someone that Bill connected me with at Texas Tech University, who had just joined the university. So sometimes it's those conversations of just the ones and twos. I've had people from the art department contact me and go and meet them. Get like that. People in the biology department, which usually it's kind of been more the traditional liberal arts, but now people in the biology department are joining now as well. And so people are seeing what we can do. So it's also it's students as well. People need to realize our power. And that goes for graduate students as well. Join the union, build it. It's not easy. None of this is easy. That's part of where we're at right now. But there's more of us now. Look at this room right here. I mean, we're having similar things like this. They're starting to happen all over the country right now, even in small towns. So it's finding each other, connecting each other. And that's another thing too. There's also like Occupy helped raise a lot of class consciousness, and then now you see these struggles are connected organically. I mean, that's kind of in the traditional role kind of laid out in the Communist Manifesto to connect the different struggles of the working class. That's happening on its own. We had an anti-ICE demonstration in San Marcos yesterday. People were there with Palestinian flags. There was I'm here, but there's to be a demonstration to hands off Venezuela. But it's morphing into also an anti-ICE rally. So these connections are strong, and that's what we're joining our struggles together. And so it's that finding this power, finding those networks, also go back to the graduate students, finding those networks, finding the people that are with you, and building those long-lasting relationships. Naomi was talked about those kind of building the capacity and building that sense of community, but also building that sense of power is what is really important.
Yeah, I'll say both to what to do in Texas. I was born and raised in Texas. I also used to teach at UT Austin, so and I escaped. Anyways, okay, so yeah, this is the thing. Like as a graduate student, I was a member of a union that was not recognized either, right? And it recently got recognition after decades, right? But the union still got the goods. Like, I didn't have dental insurance until my last year, and then I went to the dentist and ended up paying thousands of dollars anyways because I didn't see a dentist for all that time. Do you know what I'm saying? But they got us dental coverage. They got health insurance for pregnancies and for the children that are born from those pregnancies. You know what I mean? So people were actually able to start families when they're in their prime reproductive years. Like, all of this stuff counts, right? And so the university would never actually acknowledge that we're doing this in response to all the pressure, but they would still get it. And so there's still a lot of things that a union can do that even if they don't have the legal power to strike. Also, you guys, like, the UCs had a wildcat strike that was not authorized. You know what I'm saying? It's not like this has never happened before. You can still withhold your labor, but there's a lot more risk. So what are you going to do to mitigate that risk building up to it? What kind of like economic resources are you going to have available for people who are not getting paid? Do you know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, it's hard. You have to do a lot of work. But even if you're at a university where there is no grad student union, you can start one. You know, your sister is a labor organizer. I think she has tips, you know, like so there's things you can do. And like, if it's not a union, if that kind of framework does not speak to your people, it's not meeting people where they're at, then start something else. Do you know what I mean? But the point is, you have to do something. You know, this is why the radical bros are not useful, because they don't do shit. They just complain about everything. Okay, so, but there are things that you can do. The people out there are there, but you have to find them. So you have to create excuses for them to come to something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, get the people in the room, find the people find your people. That's going to be your first step, right? And then, you know, if there are riskier things that you are going to try and do in a right to work state or something like that, then you have to build out the infrastructure to enable people to take risk. I think just telling people, risk your job. Okay. Like, that's not compelling to many people, you know, and it's also not recognizing people's like actual lived realities. Okay. So like, there is something, meeting people where they're at, like, I mean, it kind of falls flat, but there is something about understanding people's lived experiences and figuring out, how do I communicate that this issue is actually their issue? And this is the thing. Our struggles have always been connected, but those connections are not obvious. And in fact, they are deliberately made obscure because capitalism has lots of tricks in its bag to divide us. So we have to do that work to make it so obvious that Venezuela, Palestine, and like Good's murder, and she's not the only one, by the way, are connected, right? Or, you know, to gentrification, whatever, like all of it is connected. The thing about risk assessment, I think that's a great question. I don't think it's solvable, frankly. I don't have a good answer either. My thinking of this on my own, this is just me popping off my own thoughts and feelings, is that I would rather be open than policing. I don't want to reproduce the structures that I'm trying to overturn, right? So we have community agreements around recording, around being ethical with like, and responsible with information, and understanding that the people in this room or in this room and on Zoom all have different risk assessments. So you can't just, you need to practice some discipline, right? On our signal groups, I assume that there are people on there who shouldn't be, but that doesn't mean I'm going to police everyone and kick them out, right? So like we do have a kind of vetting process, like for our own rapid response group, for example, like we want to meet you first. Like we want you, that's why we ask people to do an activity with us so that we can just know who you are. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about like some hoop that you have to jump through. It's because we want to like have some kind of relationship, even just one time before we add you to this kind of high risk activity. But we also like talk a lot about like, you know, message discipline, right? So like you might be very well protected. You might be a cishet white citizen male with lots of money or something. I don't know why, but you're in the signal group, right? Just because you have all of that privilege and protection does not mean that other people do. And if you don't practice message discipline, you are making a choice for everyone else on that group. And so like, that's the kind of framework that we have. But like for me, I feel like there is more lost by policing each other than there is gained by removing a problem like an actual infiltrator. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that, just looking at movements in the past, especially revolutionary movements, it's more that destroys them. You know what I mean? The suspicion and the lack of trust. So again, the relationships, I like getting to know you. I feel like I know who you are as a little bit, at least as a person. That makes a big difference. And trust is earned little by little with each encounter, right? So I think that's why getting really local has been more helpful for me. And it's been where I've been able to do, I think, more impactful work. Because I also do stuff with these national organizations. And like the relationship building part is much harder. You know what I mean? Because I don't see you, or we don't see each other. We don't get to know each other. So I think like building trust is a long, complicated process, and it doesn't solve the problem that you just introduced. But I think, yeah, I don't have a good solution. These are just my thoughts. Okay, thank you.
That was great, Naomi. Thank you. We need to bring this to, unfortunately, to an end, and we wanted to do a couple of housekeeping things before we do. But let me make a request for three rounds of applause. One for our speakers. One for Andy Thayer, our videographer. And one for Pilsen Community Books one more time. I got a couple of things to say, but we got to say one more thing again. Eric, where are you guys moving and when? And where can people start buying books from you?
Just quick. We're very proud of this space. It's worker owned and operated. It's not easy to do. We really appreciate the support. It's amazing to see this many people out here. If you do want to support us, what we do is we sell books. So if you want to support us, I think Mac maybe will check you out if you want to get a book. All of these amazing people up here have written books, multiple books. We probably have like 6 of Bill's books here, I think. So if you want to get a book from them, and I bet they'd sign it, but there's a lot of books to choose from. So if you do want to support this, or if you're able to, there's no pressure, but if you're able to and you want to, you can pick up a book. We are going to...
If you have a research account, you better buy something before you
Naomi said it, not me. And we are going to be moving at the end of the month down the street. So we are Pilsen Community Books for always and ever. We're moving across from Los Camales, if you know Los Camales, other side of the street, a little bit this way of the Pink Line and Ashland. It'll be a bigger space with an event space in the back. So all of this, I think we'll all fit in comfortably, maybe. Plus there'll be a bookstore. So it's 1531. It's not open yet. There's paper over the window. We plan to be open sometime the first week of February. We'll be closing here sometime the last week of January. It'll probably be about a week to 10-day process. So be on the lookout. We'll definitely announce stuff on social media. If you're not on our mailing list, you can get on that too.
All right, go there. A couple of last quick announcements. Thank you to Linda Lowe for presenting this to me. Martin Luther King Day in Chicago will be called Chicago Resists this year. It will be at Water Tower Park, 1 o'clock on the 19th. Anniversary of Trump's inauguration. We demand abolish ICE, end the genocide, stop the wars, tax the rich. So everybody be there. If you want to know more about Sanctuary Campus Network, I do want to encourage folks to talk to Naomi, who's done such amazing work, both locally and nationally. It's a really vital resource right now, especially in these times of mass deportations and persecutions on campus. I wanted to also say again to Val and Ellen, read their book. Really important work they're doing on academic freedom under fire then and now. Tom Alter will be coming back to Chicago, as Eric mentioned, and Nancy Rosenstock, who is sitting here, is doing a lot of great work to help organize that campaign. If you'd like Tom to come to your campus, you want to see Tom speak, please talk to Nancy, and that's going to be an amazing event. Last thing is I wanted to let my comrade and friend Kim Gasper-Raybuck, who's part of the committee to defend Tom Alter, make a pitch for something that we've been working on Tom's behalf. So Kim, I'll give it to you.
Hey, comrades. Tom is one of the first people to pay, right? One of the first people to stand up and say that we need socialism, we need a different kind of society. We all deserve to have enough food to eat and a decent house, and we deserve to have health insurance, and we deserve to go to college, and we deserve all the things, right? And he stood up and said that, and they took his livelihood. They took his dream. This man's been dreaming of being a labor historian his whole life, and they took his dream. And he's got children, and he's got a wife, and he's got a mortgage, and he's got a big-ass, large number government student loan, which he'd worked through most of, but now he's going to have to pay because, we work for a public university X number of years, and then, that cancels your debt. Well, that's over. There's no income. There's literally no income at Tom's house. The way we're going to build a movement is through solidarity and through love and through generosity and through kindness and through seeing each other as siblings. And Tom is our sibling. And what would we do for our sibling, right? So there's a GoFundMe. You can go to the GoFundMe. We haven't gotten, everybody got a piece of paper with the information about the GoFundMe. We haven't gotten to this. We'd like to have a year. We don't know how long it's going to be before he gets a job again. It's almost been a year, right? We'd like to be able to, to support him for a little bit longer. So if you could go to the GoFundMe, if you're in the position to do $47 a month, 47 against 47, you get it, for as long as you can afford to, that's going to help him be able to pay his bills a little bit longer. We don't know how long it will take him to find another job, right? We know that academic positions for socialists are not, right. Need I say more? If you don't do GoFundMe or you can't do GoFundMe, there's a gentleman named Farhad in the back corner there. He's got a bucket. If you can stick your hand in your pocket, it'd be greatly appreciated. He loves all of you, and we love him. And thank you.
So thank you all again for coming. Thanks to speakers. Come up and talk to these amazing folks. Let's keep the conversation and the organizing going. Thanks so much.